Good morning, everyone. Everyone see and hear me okay? My software seems to have a mind of its own today. So, okay, 2 thumbs up from Adil. Thanks, Adil. That's good. How's everyone this morning? Right before we started our group meditation and chanting this morning, the 2 little bunnies were out nibbling. They've changed their feeding schedule, so they eat before we sit meditation, and they're not out afterwards, so I can't get any pictures of them. Okay, well, let's see. 50 people. We're still missing another 50 friends. What's going on today, Friday? Waiting on the coffee. I'll give a little bit of news, and then today I want to take a look at a sutta. One of the benefits in doing this for me is it creates the impetus to bring certain teachings to mind that I haven't thought about in a while. And yesterday's discussion stimulated something, in particular responding to a question that Adil had posted. And there's a few elements of my answer I was a little unclear about how well I was remembering them, so I went to look them up, and I thought I'd share the teaching that I referenced yesterday with everyone here today. It's a very interesting and important sutta, actually. Memorable. But while we're waiting for everyone to get their coffee and check in, a little bit of news. So a few people had requested that they be able to reference back to the chat, and there's somebody who's watching these, not live but later, who's in Sri Lanka, who's going through and creating the timestamps for questions to make them easier to reference if people come back in a day or so after these have published. So for his sake, I'm leaving up the raw live version for a little while longer, and I guess the side benefit is people can go back and look at references that are there in the chat stream. So the chat replay is working in that raw feed of the program that we do in the morning. So so that's a benefit, but also it's not as ephemeral. So I encourage consideration what you put in the chat window, and everybody's been very well behaved. So good speech is what's required for this to be meaningful, and with too much misbehavior, we'll just have to police it or shut it down. So anyways, once those are completed, I usually trim the front bit and the back, and then there's some timestamps so that people can go back and reference a particular question. So, and as I have time and get a little more skilled in this, I might break out some of the more memorable bits, like, if we go over sutta or something, or people send me some feedback. I have gotten a little bit from people. Someone yesterday wrote me and said, "Oh, I liked what you said about bullying." So things like that I might break out into little clips that might stay on the site a little bit longer for people to reference. So let's see. Other than that, not too much news coming to mind. So maybe I might kind of go straight to looking at this sutta I wanted to go over this morning. So, and then summary, I see your question here. If there's time, maybe we'll come back to that. But let's take a look at this sutta first. So, let's see, can people see this okay? So this is sutta translated by Bhikkhu Sujato, available on Sutta Central. And I was trying to remember yesterday this sutta in reference to a question that Adil brought up, asking if Buddhism is antinatalist, meaning against birth, like in a philosophical way or a doctrinal way. And we had a little discussion yesterday about how one might think that, sort of reading it, but there's various things in the suttas where the Buddha challenges people that claim that he has a nihilist view of the world. He doesn't speak directly to the philosophy of antinatalism that I know, but I don't believe the Buddha's antinatalist. There's no place where he was, certainly there was no place where he was going around claiming that it was immoral, which I believe is one of the arguments of the antinatalists, that it's immoral to bring beings into the world knowing how much suffering one is liable to in a human life. So, and that brought up this sutta here, which again, I kind of misremembered it, not horribly, but enough so that I want to correct the record and also share this with you. So now to stimulate your memory so that you might be able to come back and look at this on your own, a little Pali lesson here. This is, Sujato has named this with Diganaka. And some of you might be familiar with the core of the Sutta Pitaka. And there is the Digha Nikaya, which is the long teachings or long suttas. The Majjhima Nikaya, which is the middle length suttas. So Digha means long. And Naka, some of you already know this word. Naka means fingernail. So in our sutta, in our retreat with Ajahn Sona, he was talking about the contemplation of the body, and he talked about the 5 elements: hair of the head, hair of the body, nails, teeth, nails, skin, teeth. I believe that's the order. Naka is nail. So long nail. So this is about a guy named Long Nail. And he was a wanderer. He wasn't a Brahmin. I wasn't sure yesterday, but he was a wanderer. So, one kind of wonders, was he like a long-haired ascetic and didn't cut his hair, didn't cut his nails? Certainly these were common kind of practices amongst certain types of ascetics. But for memory purpose, let's just imagine this Indian sadhu who doesn't look after his body. He doesn't believe in cutting his hair, doesn't believe in cutting his nails. And you can get a nice image in your mind of Diganaka. So I've heard, at one time the Buddha was staying near Rajagaha on the Vulture's Peak mountain in the Boar's Cave. Then the wanderer, Diganaka, went up to the Buddha and exchanged greetings with him. When the greetings and polite conversation were over, he stood to one side and said to the Buddha, "Master Gotama, this is my doctrine and view. I believe in nothing. This view of yours, Agivesana, do you believe in that?" "If I believed in this view, Master Gotama, it wouldn't make any difference." "It wouldn't make any difference." "Well, Agivesana, there are many more in the world who say it wouldn't make any difference. It wouldn't make any difference. But they don't give up that view, and they grasp another view. And there are a scant few in the world who say it wouldn't make any difference. It wouldn't make any difference, and they give up that view by not grasping another view. There are some ascetics and Brahmins who have this doctrine and view: I believe in everything. There are some ascetics and Brahmins who have this doctrine and view: I believe in nothing. There are some ascetics and Brahmins who have this doctrine and view: I believe in some things and not others. Regarding this, the view of ascetics and Brahmins who believe in everything is close to greed, bondage, approving, attachment, and grasping. The view of the ascetics and Brahmins who believe in nothing is far from greed, bondage, approving, attachment, and grasping. When he said this, the wanderer Diganaka said to the Buddha, Master Gotama commends my conviction. He recommends my conviction. Now, regarding the ascetics and Brahmins who believe in some things and not others, their view of what they believe is close to greed, bondage, approving, attachment, and grasping. Their view of what they don't believe is far from greed, bondage, approving, attachment, and grasping. When it comes to the view of ascetics and Brahmins who believe in everything, a sensible person reflects like this: I have the view that I believe in everything. Suppose I obstinately stick to this view and insist that this is the only truth, other ideas are silly. Then I'd argue with two people: an ascetic or Brahmin who believes in nothing, and an ascetic Brahmin who believes in some things and not others. And when there's arguing, there's quarreling. When there's quarreling, there's anguish. And when there's anguish, there's harm. So considering in themselves the potential for arguing, quarreling, anguish, and harm, they give up that view by not grasping another view. That's how those views are given up and let go. When it comes to the view of ascetics and Brahmins who believe in nothing, a sensible person reflects like this: I have the view that I believe in nothing. Suppose I obstinately stick to this view and insist this is the only truth and other ideas are silly. Then I'd argue with two people: an ascetic or a Brahmin who believes in everything, and an ascetic or Brahmin who believes in some things and not others. And when there's arguing, there's quarreling. When there's quarreling, there's anguish. When there's anguish, there's harm. So, considering in themselves the potential for arguing, quarreling, anguish, and harm, they give up that view by not grasping another view. That's how those views are given up and let go. When it comes to the view of the ascetics and Brahmins who believe in some things and not others, a sensible person reflects like this: I have the view that I believe in some things and not others. Suppose I obstinately stick to this view and insist that this and only this is the truth and other ideas are silly. Then I'd argue with two people: the ascetic and the Brahmin who believes in everything, and the ascetic and the Brahmin who believes in nothing. And when there's arguing, there's quarreling. When there's quarreling, there's anguish. And when there's anguish, there's harm. So considering in themselves the potential for arguing, quarreling, anguish, and harm, they give up that view by not grasping another view. And that's how those views are given up and let go. Agivesana, this body is physical. It's made up of the four primary elements produced by mother and father, built up from rice and porridge, liable to impermanence, to wearing away and erosion, to breaking up and destruction. You should see it as impermanent, as suffering, as diseased, as an abscess, as a dart, as misery, as affliction, as alien, as falling apart, as empty, as not self. Doing so, you give up desire, affection, and subservience to the body. So I might just break and comment here. This is a fairly standard way of that the Buddha's addressing front on our investment in finding completion and satisfaction in the sense realm, and it's pretty it's pretty strong. Pleasant, painful, and neutral feelings are impermanent, conditioned, dependently originated, liable to end, vanish, fade away, and cease. So he's talking about Vedana. Seeing this as a learned noble disciple, a learned noble disciple grows disillusioned with pleasant, painful, and neutral feelings. Being disillusioned, desire fades away. When desire fades away, they're freed. When they're freed, they know they're freed. They understand rebirth is ended. The spiritual journey has been completed. What had to be done has been done, and there is no return to any state of existence. A mendicant whose mind is freed like this doesn't side with anyone or fight with anyone. They speak the language of the world without misapprehending it. Now at that time, the Venerable Sariputta was standing behind the Buddha, fanning him. Then he thought, it seems the Buddha speaks of giving up and letting go all these things through direct knowledge. Reflecting like this, Venerable Sariputta's mind was freed from the defilements by not grasping. And the stainless, immaculate vision of the Dhamma arose in the wanderer Diganaka. Everything that has a beginning has an end. Then Diganaka saw, attained, understood, and fathomed the Dhamma. He went beyond doubt, got rid of indecision, and became self-assured and independent of others regarding the teacher's instructions. And he said to the Buddha, "Excellent, Master Gotama, excellent," as if he were righting the overturned, or revealing the hidden, or pointing out the path to the lost, or lighting a lamp in the dark so that people with good eyes could see what was there. Master Gotama has made the teaching clear in many ways, and I go for refuge to Master Gotama, to the teaching, and to the mendicant Sangha. From this day forth, may Master Gotama remember me as a lay follower who has gone for refuge for life. So maybe I should, before we jump into the heart of the sutta, just clarify this. This is one of the things that makes this memorable. Here's the account, or an account, of the enlightenment of Venerable Sariputta, one of the chief disciples of the Buddha. So Sariputta, I believe at the time, was probably a Sotapanna. So chronologically, that might place this in the early part of the Sangha. And he's there attending the Buddha, listening to this and reflecting on the Buddha's teaching. And in particular, the way the Buddha is talking about the holding of views, grasping, letting go, and then those very brief instructions about how, because of anicca, dukkha, and anatta, one does not find satisfaction in the sense realm or satisfaction in Vedana. And the way out is through non-grasping, disenchantment, letting go, and not picking up something new. So, very historic teaching when you consider one of the Buddha's chief disciples listening to such a short teaching achieves full awakening. So And then this wanderer, Diganaka, long nails and all, he gains stream entry. So this language here, if people are not familiar with it, is a clear reference to the first stage of enlightenment. He doesn't become an arhat, but this stainless, immaculate vision of the Dhamma arising in the wanderer Diganaka, again, based on like an insight into impermanence and how this teaching of anicca relates to the experience of dukkha and the import of non-self, I would say as well, is embedded in that. Because what the Buddha is pointing to when he talks about not self is how we create these delusions of self, these misguided notions of self based on unexamined ideas of permanence. Because it does seem like I've existed and I will continue to exist, and there's like this thing that's me, and that's such a strong feature of consciousness. But the stainless immaculate vision of the Dhamma arises based on his insight into impermanence, or anicca. And these features here, like he saw, he attained, he understood, and he fathomed the Dhamma. He goes beyond doubt, which is one of the first three fetters. He's rid of indecision, and he becomes self-assured and independent of others regarding the teacher's instructions. So that's a feature of attaining one of these stages of enlightenment. He's independent because he's had this transformation, this direct realization of Dhamma, and in particular, it's described in other places as like having the taste of Nibbana or a glimpse of Nibbana, kind of like going into a tunnel and seeing imagine one's going through a mountain tunnel that curves and curves and curves. Like you've been told that there's light at the end of the tunnel and that this comes out on the other side of the mountain, but until you get a glimpse of it, you don't really know for oneself. You're just relying on faith from the instructions you've got from somebody else. And that could cause one to doubt or to be indecisive. But when one, say, comes around at a certain turn, maybe you're not out of the tunnel yet, but the tunnel is aligned in such a way that you can see the light at the other side. You know, okay, yes, this does emerge there. You've had a direct experience of it. It goes from being mere faith and just following some instructions to something that you've seen clearly for yourself, you know for yourself, but you're not yet finished. So he's not completely enlightened in this sutta here. So let me just scroll back up here and make a few comments. I cannot see the chat right now because of the way this is all arranged today. So I'll make a few more comments and then see if I can pop out of here and see if there's any follow-up questions or something. Chiefly this seems to be a teaching where the Buddha is focusing mostly on views and how people's worldviews and opinions kind of leave them sort of stuck. And in some sense, if you look at philosophy especially, but even religion and religious dogma or something, that's generally as far as many people take it. They inherit a set of views and beliefs based on their family, their culture, their conditioning, various things, and they hold to that. And maybe through some change of course or something, they give up some views and pick up other views. But one could say that their relationship to views never really changes if you're just exchanging one view for another. And this is something I was referencing yesterday. The Buddha says you need to go beyond view. Like view doesn't do it. It's like through direct experience that one really addresses the problem of overcoming dukkha. And if one is merely kind of holding the views, especially as a strategy, and his culture is rich in philosophy and religious views, debates, dogma. There's lots of stories of wanderers and religious people of all kinds of sects and practices wandering around debating each other, and indeed creating strife through their spiritual and philosophical debates. And one would say that they've lost the kind of deeper kind of potential of not just merely having a view, but turning inwards and really engaging in a practice that transforms one's relationship to the experience of dukkha. And what I misremembered a little bit yesterday is like what I was remembering was the Buddha's kind of distinction, and it's a little strange the way it comes out in here. It's like people that believe in everything. What is it? The view. Let's see if we can get it on the screen here. The view of ascetics and Brahmins who believe in everything. The Buddha says, this is close to greed, bondage, approving, attachment, and grasping. So I was remembering that as the orientation that the world's good, and one might say this is a very life-affirming vision of the world that affirms one. I would say the strategy of trying to find happiness merely in worldly things, or happiness in the sense realm. And the Buddha is saying this is close to greed, bondage, approving, attachment, and grasping. And then there's these the other end of the spectrum, people that believe in nothing. And because the Buddha is talking about it being far from greed, bondage, approving, attachment, and grasping, I would say it's, if not a nihilist view, it's very close to that. So I'm not a scholar, so I'm sure there's some learned commentary that helps pin this down a bit. My relationship to these suttas is just they're sources for investigation and reflection, and then I try to map these and to my own sort of experience and investigations in my spiritual life. And it's interesting to see what the scholars have to say and the commentaries have to say, but I think it's also, they're quite accessible for people just to contemplate and to stimulate that kind of contemplation of their own spiritual practice and understanding the world. But so let's call this the nihilist. And what I was remembering yesterday is the Buddha saying, well, he doesn't say it explicitly, but the wanderer interprets the Buddha as praising him for this view that he doesn't believe in everything. So my interpretation there is like he's got a view that is like that of the nihilist, and he's a wanderer. So, and I think the signs are that he's an ascetic wanderer. So he's given up the comforts of a normal life, a family, a house, the security of that, and he's a pabbaja. He's a homeless wanderer, because there's some insight into that alone is not a successful strategy for overcoming the dissatisfaction and the dukkha of a human life. And so he's taken up some sort of ascetic lifestyle or religious lifestyle. And then the chief feature in here, Buddha's talking about these different views. He adds some that believe a mix or something in between those two extremes. But the real import here is if one is overly invested in views and opinions, especially tightly held, energetically held, philosophical or religious kind of dogmas, one sets oneself up to anguish, to arguing, to quarreling. And it's interesting, he ends that sort of phrase like, what is it? When there's quarreling, there's anguish. When there's anguish, there's harm. So, so considering in themselves the potential for arguing, anguish, and harm, they give up this view, and by not grasping another view, they let go. So it's not merely by finding the right view or another view. And right view in Buddhism isn't just grasping what the Buddha said. Right view in Buddhism starts maybe with faith and taking something on faith, a hypothesis that the Buddha's pointing out to, but then actually developing the path and developing one's spiritual life to go beyond that, so that one gets to the place where they're not merely just holding views or grasping at views as satisfactory. There's one other thing in here. There was something else in here about views or letting go that caught my attention, but it's escaping me right now. And then I pointed out when I was reading it, the Buddha's kind of pointing to the sense realm and the limitations of that, and then also the limitations of feelings, pleasant, painful, and neutral. So Vedana, and in particular, there's this insight into the impermanence of these. So in this sutta, that's standing in for the core or the more profound sort of heart of real transformation, a real spiritual practice, supporting the ability to sort of go beyond the mere holding of views and opinions, ditthi, as they say in Pali. So, all right, so let me return to the chat and see if I can pull that up. I feel bereft without my chat window. I don't know what you all are saying. Okay, so Digalakana, commit that to your mind. Hopefully you got an image of a matted hair Indian ascetic with big long nails wandering around, and who has this fortunate encounter with the Buddha. So okay, well, I see we're already on 8:30 here, so maybe we'll just have to leave the questions for another day. I'll leave this for your contemplation this morning, and we'll see you tomorrow morning for morning coffee. Hope everyone has a good day. Bye for now.